Hi everybody, I'm Paul and I'm here with the tree that I air layered last year. This is about the third stage of this. If you go back and look at my videos, you can see the actual air layer that I did to get the tree separated. The first one is where I apply the sphagnum moss to the tree to create the air layer, and then the follow-up video that I did, which actually shows when I separated the tree. This tree's been sitting in this pot for about a year now. It's spring. Coming up on summer here in Orlando, Florida, so it's already warm. It's supposed to get into the upper 80s today, so temperature's right to work on tropical trees. But this is my Brazilian Raintree, and I'm going to kind of go over the health, talk about the general growth patterns, what I did after the air layer, just kind of let this thing grow out, and then I'm going to talk about taking the soil off the roots. We're going to look at the roots, and there's a lot of people that have questions about how to choose which are the feeder roots and which ones are not, so we're going to get close-ups of that so I can show you how to select which roots you want to keep. We'll then take the soil off, we'll rake the roots, reduce the top of the tree, get this into a bonsai pot today, into bonsai soil, and then we'll kind of go through the entire process. So if you're really starting out in bonsai right now, this is a great video because I'm going to go start to finish from what is really pre-bonsai material, or if you buy something in a nursery, to a finished bonsai look for the most part into a bonsai pot. So we're going to cover all the basics today. It's going to be a great day. There's going to be a little bit of work, but it's a beautiful day to be outside. So, stay tuned and here we go. Okay, I brought the camera in a lot closer so we can really look at the details in the base of the trunk. For the most part, a Brazilian Raintree, when it grows and it develops the trunk, it actually gets very thin and narrow, depending on where the branches are, because they actually kind of pull it in that direction. So you'll see there's a lot of times when I'm keeping on a low branch at the base of the tree, that's definitely not going to be a branch I'm going to keep in the future. That's a branch that's going to make my trunk wider down here. If I were to let that go, it would continue to grow, but it wouldn't continue to grow out in that direction. And where I have branches higher up, those branches are going to continue to pull the trunk, so which gives me almost like a knob or a reverse taper, which I don't want. So I got to make sure I keep that trunk flaring so that it can handle the way the tree is going to grow. Additionally, this material is a painful one because it grows spikes on it up to about 1.5 inches. Here's one right here, which I'm just going to peel off. These things are deadly, especially when they dry out. There's a lot of times when you're doing cuttings, and they're flexible when they're growing like this. They don't really stick as much, but when they dry out, they become like hard as nails, and these will go through your shoes, and that will give you a horrible surprise in your garden if you don't make sure that you get these, get rid of them when you're cutting them off the tree. So just something to be careful about. Additionally, the growth on this, what happens is it kind of works in a zigzag back and forth motion. The way it keeps going, it goes out, over, and these will become branches eventually, and pretty much at every internode, which is the space between the internodes, and at the nodes, you'll see that's where the spikes grow. If you cut the spike off, another spike won't grow in that location. So what you want to do is you want to kind of go in, clean out your tree, take the spikes off, and then you're not going to be constantly ripping your skin up as you're working on this material. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the tree out of the nursery pot, and it should be in here pretty well developed. Oh yeah, and you can see that's only 1 year's worth of roots. Remember, this was an air layer. There was barely maybe that many roots when I put it into the soil, and you can see how long this stuff is. This is in a nursery mix, which was done just to promote the roots to grow, unimpeded. I'm not looking for short roots at this point. I was just looking for very strong roots to help stabilize the tree. Again, we wanted to continue to thicken the trunk. So to do that, you want the long roots, the long fat roots. Those are the ones that are going to make the trunk continue to get thicker. Once you put it in the bonsai soil, that's where you're going to start getting the more hairy, the feeder roots closer to the trunk. And at that point, your trunk is pretty much the size it's going to be. So that's where we're at with that. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to rake the soil off because I just want to get down to the bare roots of this tree. And at that point, we will then start to reduce the roots in, get it into a tighter length of roots. And at that point, we'll then put it in the bonsai soil mix and get it into a wired into the pot and stabilized so that it continue to grow. Now keep in mind, since the way that I let this happen is once I air layered it off, I didn't take any foliage off the top of the tree. I wanted the top of the tree to promote the new growth because what happens is the more growth you have on top, the more food is going to come back down to the roots to develop more roots. So I was working the balance pretty well by doing that. And again, this tree is a lot bigger than it's going to be in a short while, but as I reduce the roots, I'm also going to reduce the top of this tree so that I balance out the roots with the foliage, and also start to define which branches I'm going to keep. One more note about the growth of this. On the nodes, the gap in between, If you cut at this location or this location or this location, anywhere on that node, and you take off the foliage at the other end, whatever section you don't take off back to that exact node will die. So if I cut here, I'm going to have dieback on the branch all the way back to this point. So keep in mind when you're cutting these things, you want to cut back to the next node. So if I remove it here, it's going to die back to there. If I cut it there, it's going to die back to there. So always keep in mind, you're always going to have dieback on Brazilian rain trees. So all I'm going to do right now, I'm going to try and be as neat as possible. I might actually have to lower this down into the pot just so I can scrape the soil off without making a total mess for myself. So one more time, I'm going to lift this up. Get rid of that. And just going to gently rake out the soil. This compared to an actual plant that you might buy in a nursery is there's not going to be as many thick roots in here because it's been air layered, and they really haven't had that much time to really develop a lot of very thick roots. And right now you can see how easy it is. I'm actually raking through this soil, not hitting too many very large roots whatsoever. Definitely hitting a few spikes on the branches though once in a while, and that really gets your attention. Those things are painful as can be. So I'm going to speed this tape up a little bit right now, and you can just kind of watch in super speed as I just work my way around, gently taking the soil, or loosening the soil so that I can clean the roots off and get down to the basis of this tree. Okay, so here's the bare roots, and I'm doing a close-up intentionally because there's some people that ask questions about how do you tell which are the roots and which are the feeder roots. Well, they're combined. Feeder roots, every root is going to have feeder roots, but you can see the length of this thing, how wide it is, and it's just a very long root. But every so often you'll see a very fine root. These hair-like ones, this is where the food actually comes in, and this is where the water is actually taken up. The fat part of this is not, does not take up the nutrients. But you can see how far of a distance is there between the 2 points because there's nothing to split the roots. That was in a very soft medium, which was just bonsai, or just was nursery mix. So there was no way that this thing was going to split. It was just going to continue to get longer and continue to get fatter as it continued to grow. But when we put it in a bonsai soil mix, what's going to happen is instead of having this long internode in between, it's going to be much shorter that they occur. So you start getting feeder root, real close together, and that's how you get the shorter roots. So that's how to tell the difference. When you get these real long ones like this, what we're going to do to get it in the bonsai pot, and I'm going to over pot this too, just so you know, because there's plenty of room in the pot that I'm going to use to accommodate all these roots, but I kind of want to get rid of the ones that are up the trunk because we really want to get as much trunk exposed as possible. And these roots that are showing up the top of the trunk aren't really necessary because we have so many down at the base of the tree. So by uncovering this portion of the trunk, we actually wind up with a larger base to the trunk, which means don't forget the math. For every 1 inch wide it is down here, you can go 6 inches tall. So what you're looking at with a narrower trunk is a shorter tree. But if I can get that to be exposed, all of a sudden I can have a much larger tree because of how much exposed trunk I have at the base of the tree. So that's what we're going to try and do. Is we're going to work right now. Let me get my tools. Okay, so I'm just going to use just a pair of shears. You can use a number of tools to do this exact job. But all I'm going to do is just along the top of this, I'm going to start removing the roots that are coming out at the top of the tree. And you'll see there's not a whole lot of root that I'm actually losing. Just a little bit, but not bad. Most of the bulk of the rootage is down by the end. Now, and again, we don't want real long roots either, so we're going to just kind of come along the bottom of this, snip it down to a reasonable size so we're not dealing with these really long roots. And by doing this, it's going to promote the tree to start splitting and actually giving us more roots closer to the trunk. And there we go, a real nice base of the tree. So what we have now is more of the trunk exposed. The nice thing about using actual nursery material compared to this is normally what you'd find is you would keep removing roots until you come down to the most substantial root that the tree offers. What's going to happen is as you dig down to the soil, you'll hit a lot of these more thin roots, but all of a sudden you'll find a very thick root, and that's going to be the one that's going to be used as your nabari or as your surface root because it's got the most interest. Since this has been air layered, I don't really have very many fat roots. So I don't really have that root to work down to. So really it's just a preference for me to get down to a root that actually has, or get down to a level that I really want to. And what I'll do is I'll refine this once I actually pot it up in the soil, once I determine where the bottom or the base of my tree is going to be, and then we'll work from there. Now, I've got a lot of foliage on the top of this tree, so I do want to remove a lot of this stuff. I don't want to remove the branches. I want to keep the branches where they are, and then later on decide how I want to style the tree. I'm just simply trying to get this tree into a bonsai pot right now so that I can get up to eye level, start to work on it, and then decide what I want to do with it in the future. But what I have right now is a tree that's got way too much foliage on it. Let me just zoom back a little bit. Oops, come the wrong way. Let me just zoom back a little bit just so I can get more of this tree in and show you what I'm talking about. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the ends off these branches. Okay, because this growth, for the the length of this tree, the last thing I want is a branch that goes out this far. So what I want to do is I want to cut this branch back to a reasonable size. I don't want to go back beyond any, where I don't have any foliage left, but I just want to get back to a basic shape of a tree, a basic width of the tree. So I'm going to take this off. Now remember, I said there's going to be dieback, and later on I'll be able to show you in this tree where I do have some dieback. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it right back to the node and clip it right above that. Allow a little bit of area just to grow back for dieback, which is going to be this little nub right here, because it's going to stop right at that node. Now notice there's the spikes, and later on I'm going to come in, I'm going to clean those up, and it's just a matter of just clipping off the tips. But keep in mind, those things fly around, so you might want to do it in the backyard, you might want to do it over a garbage can. You want to keep track of those things because they will get your attention if you step on them. So again, I'm just going to go through right now, I'm just going to start removing some of the branches down to the next, down to the foliage. This one's a little bit long here as well, so I'm going to take it right back to the node. All right, so this, what it does is it makes it a much more manageable tree. That branch was way out here before. Now I've got a branch that's just maybe 12 inches long, and I'm still probably going to reduce it back more. And actually, this is really a sacrifice branch. This is the one I'm using to thicken up the base of the tree. So that one's just going to go, and then eventually I'll remove it. But again, I'm just going to work my way up the tree, removing branches as I go, just to get to the basic shape of the tree. Some of these have very long shoots on. The way Brazilian Raintree grows is it'll send out very, very long shoots and very aggressive, especially in springtime. It just wants to grow like crazy because it saved up all its energy all through the winter months. And talk about the winter months, for this type of tree, you don't really want to get below 45 degrees. They don't like cold weather at all. In the evenings, you'll see that these trees wilt a bit. They kind of go to sleep, where their leaves will actually collapse. It's nothing wrong with the tree, it's just what they do. And in the morning when the sun hits it again, the leaves pop right back up. If you underwater this tree, it will droop like that, but as soon as you water it, it'll start to pop up brand new, or fully alert tree leaves again. So again, I'm just coming in, just cleaning this up as best I can, leaving a little bit of foliage because I don't want any of the branches to die. I kind of have the branches that I want on this tree. It's just a matter of figuring out how to style them and which way I want to work them. But as we get closer to the top of the tree, of course, we're going to come in closer to the tree because we want to build that apex. So these branches can definitely be shorter up top than they are at the bottom. And most of the growth on this type of tree will be on the top of the tree anyway. As they shade out the bottom branches, they don't grow as aggressively. And again, since I'm going to remove some of the roots underneath, so I got to remove some of the foliage up top just to balance it out, because the roots won't be enough to support the upper branches if I don't take any of the upper foliage off. So we're starting to get into larger branches, and again, keep in mind you want to have your lower branches or your heavier branches. So these ones that are heavy up top are most likely going to be removed eventually in lieu of smaller branches. So I'm going to clean this up pretty good. Here's an example of dieback. Now you can see this was cut way back. Let me make sure it's in the camera. But you can see right here, this was a branch that was cut, probably last year when I was doing the air layer. Notice how it's all yellow and it goes right back to the node. That's the dieback that I'm talking about. You can see each of these branches were cut and they're yellow now. So this is really dead wood right here. So you could clip that off after the dieback happens. If you clip it off now at the base of that yellow, it's not going to damage the tree. It's not going to die back any further. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're working these, that you want to cut pretty much to the far end of the node, because if you cut back on the other side, it's going to die back to the next node. These large branches are growing straight up, you're just going to take those off altogether. Again, I'm not really styling this tree at this point. I'm just kind of cleaning it up and making it manageable, because these long shoots are definitely not going to be part of any finished bonsai that I have. I just want to get it so I can work with it and get into the bonsai pot standing up and see the line of the tree. By taking off a lot of the foliage, I can see how the tree is going to grow and then start to develop those branches in that direction. Notice that this is bare rooted right now, and I'm not panicked. This tree can dry out a little bit. It is kind of drought tolerant. It's going to let you know if it's struggling. It's going to start to wilt its leaves. But right now everything's staying up pretty firm, so I'm just going to let it like it is. And I'm going to get it into soil here in the next 5 minutes at the latest anyway. That's my next step once I've got all these branches cleaned off. And we're almost there anyway, so. Oh, on a side note, and by the way, I don't want to get off topic. I got a comment lately that I get off topic a lot, but it's kind of my train of thought that happens when I work on bonsai trees. It's just the way I associate a lot of things together. But one thing will make me think of something else, and I think it's worth passing on to you guys while I'm thinking about it. So, but somebody was asking about a jade that they just tried to do a root over rock style with, based upon my root over rock video that I did. Now, jades are succulent plants, so they hold water, which means if you water them too much, you're going to rot out the roots. So I know it's hard, but if your jades are starting to drop leaves and not look good, most people would panic and start watering it more. That's what's going to actually kill it. So what you want to do is stop watering it for a while until those leaves actually start to shrivel up a little bit. When those leaves start to shrivel, that means everything's sealed up. When you cut a jade, you're actually opening up a wound, and as long as that thing is fresh cut, as you water, it's going to continue to pour liquids out that wound. You have to wait till it actually dries up a little bit so that when you water it, it starts to retain the water again. So that's with jades. Really, you got to know your plants before you try any of these techniques with it. A plant like this can stay out bare rooted for a while, but other trees, if you leave them bare rooted, junipers and things like that, they don't like to dry out, and you're really going to damage the tree. So you really got to know the type of tree that you're working with, so that you know how quickly you have to do things and what time of the year to do things, and how to style the trees, and know that they're going to recover from it. This is, just to let you know, this is extremely stressful for a tree. I mean, it's sitting without its soil. It has no water source right now. It has no food source right now, and I'm taking branches off of it as I'm talking. So you can see it's quite stressful. So what we want to do is get this tree back into an established pot as quick as possible, into a good soil mix, and then get some water on the roots, and then put it in a shaded area just for a little while, just to let it recover. And then as soon as we start seeing new growth popping, then we can give it full sun. Now, this is let me tilt up a little bit because I want to show you the reason why I air layered this tree. The tree that I took this off of was a very straight tree, but you can see, look at the movement in that trunk. This is why it was worth taking the tree off of the other tree. I've got a fat base because I've got this branch pulling it, widening it out for me, keeping it nice and fat down here. But look at the movement in here, and you can see how this tree is going to look when it's done. Now that I've got the branches off, all the extra foliage off, I've got a tree that you can almost see the basic design. Here's my first branches, my second branches over here. I've got back branches, and then I've got a multiple of branches to choose from to design the final tree on this. But it's to the width that I want, because this is the height of the tree. This base makes it possible for me to have this 18 to 20 inch tall tree, because it's big enough to say, yeah, it's not top heavy. It does have nice tapers that goes up the tree. It's got great movement, and it's a very interesting tree to look at. Brazilian Raintree, what we're going to do is we're going to open this up a lot, because you really want to have a lot of negative space, which is the space between the branches. Branches like this, when it's growing straight up, are most likely going to come off, but I'm keeping it to, again, keep that trunk going. You can see how it gets knobs once in a while, how it pulls every direction that there's a branch. When you take that branch off, it doesn't have that pull anymore. So I want to keep a branch there until I've got the movement of the tree, because once I take it off, that tree is not going to pull that direction anymore. It's not going to flatten out like it normally does anymore in that direction if I don't have it. So I've got to make sure before I take off these branches that I am where I want the tree to be before I take it off, so that when I do have my final branches that are continue to pull in those directions, I've already got the tree established enough that it can handle that pull in the directions of where the final branches are going to be. I'm not sure where my final front of the tree was. I know I had to kind of decided when I was in the pot, it's probably somewhere right in there. But my next step right now is to get this into bonsai soil, and it's just a matter of prepping the pot, wiring this into the pot, and then adding some soil onto it. And I'm going to skip that section on this video because I've done it on another video. If you go back and look through my my how-tos, you'll find me potting up a Simpson stopper, which is very similar to doing this one. So I'm just going to skip ahead to that part, and I'm going to come back when the tree is actually in the bonsai pot, and we're going to take it from there. Okay, so there we are for right now. As far as I'm going to take it, probably this year, this is probably all I'll do. I'll maintain the tree, just kind of let it recover from the shock of what we just have gone through. Just going to keep it in the shade just a little bit, like I said, until we start getting new growth on it. Back to the cuts. Cut paste really isn't needed, as you are going to have diebacks, and no matter what you put on the end of that cut, it's not going to help that branch at all. So I just kind of let them air dry, and then in time you'll just see that they start to die back to a certain point and then stop. Additionally, I won't fertilize right now. I'll fertilize once I start to get new growth popping. Watering for Brazilian Raintree, probably right now I do once or twice a day, depending on how dry it is. If we're not getting any rain here in Florida and it's really getting into our dry season, so I'll probably hit it twice a day, just for maybe 4 minutes a day on the sprinkler system. But my soil drains very, very well, so it doesn't hold a lot of water. So I definitely want to keep the roots moist but not wet. You never want your trees to sit in water, because it just causes the roots to rot out. So going forward, we're going to most likely remove some branches in time, pick the line of the tree. I'm pretty sure this is the front. The pot that it's in right now is just a bonsai pot that it fit in. This is not the final pot that I would use. I'd most likely move it more to the center a little bit, but I would think with all the movement in this tree, the last thing I want is hard, sharp edges of a rectangle pot. This is going to be an oval pot, probably a little bit more shallow. I don't mind the color so much on this one, but there's other colors that work very nice with Brazilian Raintrees, like a cobalt blue or a dark blue. I've even seen a light beige that works very well with it, or a cream color. It just brings out the colors of the bark very nice. A lot of character to this tree, but I just wanted to let you see the final steps on what I'm going to do right before I finish this tree and completely style it out. This used to be the top of another tree. It is now in a bonsai pot, and that was within 1 year that we went from start to finish. So always great to get your own, or be able to propagate your own material, and this cost me the price of what I paid for the other tree. So kind of like a free tree. If you have any questions, you can always reach me through this post, or just comment. Probably the easiest way to get me. Make sure you subscribe. Always new videos coming out. I'm talking about doing a beginner's series to take you start to finish, very, very basic stuff, which I'll probably be doing very soon. And with all the questions I get right now, it keeps me busy enough that I've got plenty of ideas on future videos to do. So plenty more to come. We'll talk to you soon, and hope this one helps you.